Okay guys, so now we have finished our box braids and we'll be going on to our knotless. First step with knotless is that you have to pre-section your hair. As you can see here, I've already sectioned my hair, and these are very small sections. I always advise my students to do small sections. That way you could always double up if you need more, rather than put in big sections and have to take off while you're braiding. So this is the section size I have, and I have my braid rack. And we're gonna get into braiding. So when doing knotless, the aim is to make sure that the hair looks like it's coming from the scalp. To do that, we're gonna have our 3 sections like that, and then we're gonna continue to braid like normal. We're gonna go 1, 2, then we're gonna pick up piece of hair, and the way I add my hair is I have my hair here. I make sure that it's even. You have it here. I'm gonna put my hand around like this so that this hair is now on the back of my fingers. I'm gonna hold it, and now I loop it again. Hold it like this, making sure that the ends are even. I'm gonna fold my hand like this, or turn my hand I should say, and then I'm gonna bring it over so that it creates a loop. Now this may be a bit complicated for some persons. If you want, you could do it with one finger, that's fine. Once you create a loop, that's cool. So after we've braided 1, 2 times, I'm gonna take my loop, I'm gonna add it in between my finger, my index and my thumb, ensuring that one section of the braiding hair is above my index and one section is in between my thumb and my index. See? After that, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna braid like normal. 1, 2, and we're gonna add again. Second section, again in my hand, and make sure that the ends are even. And I flip my hand, make my knot. I'm gonna add it, and as you can see when I'm adding, this is the motion, and I'm pulling it up so that this falls over my index. I'm gonna go 1, 2. You wanna make sure that you keep your hand, this hand on the scalp, so that it doesn't slacken up. One more time. For my third one, after I add my third one, I flip the hair so that my thumb comes on top. And at this point, so after I've added my third strand of hair, a third piece of hair, at this point is when I'm gonna decide how thick I want my knotless braid. If I want to keep this size, or I want to thicken it up. So right now I feel that it's a bit too small. I'm going to add, just like how I showed you guys to add with the box braid, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna add like this, and I'm gonna plait. That's my 4th piece. When I'm braiding down, I'm gonna decide if it's thick enough for this section. If not, then I'll add a 5th piece. But for right now, I feel that it's thick enough, and I like this size. I'm gonna continue braiding down, thumb on top, same thing that we were doing with the box braid. Thumb on top, keep your thumbs close together, keep the plait tight. Now, when I'm coming down, I'm gonna feel one of the sections are getting smaller, so I'm gonna add to the section that is the smallest. And just like with the box braid, the section that is the smallest or thinnest, you put it to the front, to the right hand side. Make sure that the other 2 sections are out of the way. And I'm gonna add your piece. And keep adding, keep braiding, keep adding, braiding, keeping it tight, coming all the way down. You want to make sure that the sections you're adding are not too big, because you want to Keep the size consistent and keep it tight. Make sure that this transition is smooth. You don't have to add it each time you turn. As you guys can see, I add and I braid it down a bit, making sure that the sizes are around the same before I add my hair. Continue braiding down to your desired length. If it is you wanted it a longer length, then you keep adding. One advice is that you want your thickness of your braid to maintain the same size until you pass the person's neck. So for example, if I'm doing breast length hair, I want to make sure that my braid, the width of my braid remains the same all the way down to my neck. It should never be a case where it's very thick hair and then it gets very, very bony hair and then very, very thick again. It should always try to get thin first between hair and hair. It shouldn't go past this section. Then you maintain the same width right down to the neck area of your client. If it is you're doing waist length, you want to try and maintain this thickness right down to the person's bra strap area. And that's how we do our knotless. I'm going to show you guys one more time, and then we're going to be doing a bit of ombre. I'm going to start with my right hand first, grabbing index through and under the middle section. You grab, that's 1, 2, you pick up your sections, and I forgot to mention that all my sections on the rack are the same size. If somebody here is thin, what I do, I put my first and second section the same size, and my third section will be a bit thicker. 1, 2, add, in, push your hand up, 1, 2, add my third section, 1, and then flip. Some on top, tuck, some on top, tuck. If I feel like I want a 4th strand, then I go in and I add my 4th piece. Keeping it tight. And try to tuck as much as possible. I don't think when you're doing knotless, you would see some of the natural hair, but it should never be all the way down here, especially when tucking. And you braid, keeping it tight, keeping the size. You could always measure the braid next to it to make sure that it's around the same size. And then you continue to add your sections. I can't stop stressing to make sure that your thumbs kiss each other and make sure that you add tension when braiding. So my thumbs are kissing, but I'm still pulling this way. I'm still pulling strand this way. Still pulling, pulling, pulling. The tighter the braid, the longer the person's hair would last. And hot water, when you dip the hair in hot water, it won't change the form of the braid too much because your hair is tight and secured. Keep measuring. As you can see, I see that this one is getting long, a bit small. It's actually a bit smaller than the first one, so which means I probably missed a couple when adding in. It is okay to take out, there's no problem. It's always good to see where you made your mistake and start over. The moment you see a mistake and you keep leaving it that way, you're going to become a very, very lazy braider, and we don't do that here. fix your problem. You're never too good enough to make a mistake. Once you fix it, it shows that you care about the quality of your work. Keep measuring it and grading it down. Again, if one section is smaller, you could even borrow it once you have reached the length that you so desire. And that's it for our second knotless. Now I'm going to show you guys a bit of ombreing using the same technique with a little flavor to it. And cut. Okay, so we have done our box braids and we have done our knotless braids. Now we're going to be doing a bit of knotless and ombreing. So this right here is a full length 48 inches of the TZ pre-stretch here, and this is the 48 inches cut in half. Now why am I cutting it? That is because when doing ombre, there is 3-toned and there is 2-toned ombre. What I'm going to show you now is a 3-toned ombre, and in order to do that, we have to have 3 different colors and 3 different sections in the braid that you're gonna add them. Now for me, what I like to describe is that there is what I call a high ombre or high transition, there is the middle transition, and there is the base transition. What I'm going to show you here is a mannequin head from one of my students, and she did. I'm gonna show you the 3 types or the 2 types of what I mean. So on this braid right here, we have our 3-toned, on this here we have our 2-tone, and what I will call a transition starting in the middle. This braid has been here for some time, so don't mind the frizzes. All right, so again we have another 3-toned hair with a very high transition. So when I say high transition, what I mean is basically the ombre or the transition starting very high, and in order to get this, the first transition right here has to be cut short. Why do we cut it short? Because if we keep it long, then we'll have to be fighting to tuck a lot of blonde hair, and the plait itself would be extremely thick because we'll be trying to fight to tuck this color with this color, and if we leave this color the same length, then we'll have to try and tuck all of them at the base. So to get this type of ombre, I cut the first color in half. So I cut the 48 inches here in half. For this second transition, as you can see the difference in the length and how long it is, this right here is the entire 48 inches of hair. So I did not cut this middle section here, and for the transition at the end, this section is also cut in half. So we have, for a high transition, you cut the first color in half and the last color in half as well. If it is you wanted the ombre to start, or the third transition to start high, then you will have to cut the middle here or the middle color in half as well. Okay, so let's see how we do all of that. So I'm gonna start with my black here, and then I'm gonna end with pink, and I'm going to keep this color in the middle, right? So I'm not cutting this color. I cut my first color, and I cut my first color and I cut my last color. All right. And obviously, guys, when you cut the color, it will leave you with a blunt end. So you'll also have to stretch or tease your braid to get it like this. Now when sectioning or racking your hair, the first color, which is this, is going to be thick but not too thick. Reason being, it's gonna be the base color and the one that is gonna start and achieve the thickness of the plait itself. So I normally do 3 to 4 sections of the first color. So this is the size for my first section. And I'm gonna also rack my last section. Now my last section is gonna be the tiniest section because it's just the end of the hair and you want this transition to be smooth and like a feather coming down to the ends. So what I'm gonna pick off is literally very, very small sections. Like these. I'm gonna do at least 8 of these sections. Here we have it. So I have my first section, I have my last section, and the size of my middle section. My middle section remains the same size as these regular knotless braids. You don't want them too thick because if it's too thick, it's gonna change the plait. It's gonna change the size of the plait and make it too fat, okay? All right, so let's get started. Apply your product. You're gonna go 1, 2. We're gonna add our first section. As you guys can see the thickness. We're gonna go 1, 2. Add our second section. We're gonna go 3, 4. Add our third section. 5. Flip. Every time you hit that third, you flip on your second. And this is the size we're gonna go with. Now, if it is that it was thinner, I would have added my 4th section, but I think this is fine. So I can keep my 3 sections this size. And at this point, I am going to start adding my second color. So I don't wait until I get all the way down here to add it, but I start peeking it in. Very small, as you can see, it's small, so it won't do a massive change to the size of the plait. I plait down 1, 2, 3, 4. This will only matter on the size of the section. So for every section that I feel is getting small, I add my transition color, keeping it in the back. Remember to tuck by pulling it in the back, keeping your hands down. I'm gonna add again. Keeping it. Add one more. As you can see, this one is very thin. I'm gonna add one more. And at this point, I'm going to flip. So I have to be very, very attentive at this section. So now that my black hair is on top, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to push it to the back, and the hair underneath, look at my hands, I'm going to bring it this way. So when you're tucking the hair underneath, you bring it this way, but when you want to show it, you pull it back this way. So I take the black hair and I put it in the back, and I bring the hair from underneath forward by pushing it back like this. Black hair is here, carry it in the back, take the hair from underneath, push it back. Same thing for the third strand. You want to make sure you do it for each strand, each section, back. And that way, the blonde hair now will come, or sorry, the brown hair will come on top, and you keep adding to your thin sections so that you will have a flawless ombre. Now you see that? That was a very nice transition, and there is no significant change in the size. You keep it tight and only add when you feel that one section is a bit too small. I'm gonna add my last section about here. Now that I have passed the neck of my client, I know I could now relax on the size and start borrowing if it is getting too, if a section is getting too small. I plait this down right down to the ends. I'm just gonna speed this up so that we could get down to the ends a bit faster. Keep borrowing, making sure that all your sections are even. And at this point, right here, I'm gonna decide if I want to start adding here. So as you can see, it's getting very, what we would say strawny, or very thin. And now we're gonna add our third transition color. Now you can see these are very thin because it has to compensate for the size here. I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna plant it down, try to tuck it, keep it there, keep it there. I'm gonna add your second one. Always watch the size to make sure that it's not making a big change. If it is, that's because you're adding the hair too soon. Alright, that is showing. Tuck, keep it tight. A good indicator too is to make sure that when you're adding, that the third transition hair is passing the blonde, so that's when you would know, or the second transition color, so that's when you would know when to stop adding. Keep it, keep it, keep it. Much as possible. Let's push this out. It's gonna be a very long braid. Now that I feel like I've had enough pink, you can see that the size is still the same. I'm going to now push this color in the back and bring the pink forward. Again, push this color in the back. If it is you're getting problems to push it in the back, then you bring it the other way. And keep tucking. And there you have your pink and your third transition color popping at the end. Now you don't have to wait until your plait is this small or this thin. You could actually start your transition up here to maintain a thicker size. But this was just a tutorial I was showing you guys of how to feed it in. And I wanted to show you guys if I could feed it in on this thin section, then you definitely can feed it in on a thicker section. And this is how we do it. Just try to continue tucking the hair, going down, keeping it tight until you go all the way to the ends. And there we have our three-toned ombre with a very high transition, a very long middle piece, and a very low third transition. And here we have it. So we went from black to brown all the way to pink. Cut.
Recording.
Focus. Alright, so guys, for our second ombre, we'll be doing a middle transition. And with this one, we keep both colors at the same length. No cutting is done with this one. So today we're going to start off with the pink. I have our 3 sections. 1, 2. Add our pink. 1, 2. X. Add our second. 1, 2, add our third section. One, flip, thumb on top, thumb on top, start tucking, and I'm going to decide if I want it to be a little thicker. I want to keep it this size, that's fine with me. I'm going to pat down, and at this point, if this is the size I want, I'm going to start adding my second color. Now these sections are a bit smaller than this first one, just by a tiny bit, so that it doesn't change the size. I'm going to add, and remember, I'm only adding on sections that feel small. I'm gonna go with 2. See, the size of the plait remains consistent. And I'm tucking the hair by keeping it in the back. Now that I have passed the middle, or the neck, sorry, of my client, I can consider flipping. And I want to make sure that there is enough of the transition color on all 3 strands. I'm going to add again. Strand is the thinnest. I'm going to add to that. And at this point, we're going to decide to flip. So I'm going to take all the pink, find the pink, and push it to the back. And bring my second color up. Push it to the back. Find the way that all is easiest for you. And separate as much pink as possible. Try not to get the colors mixed, because then it's going to get very difficult to tuck it. Just flip in. You realize that there is still a bit more pink. You can go ahead and start adding a bit more transition color to hide up that pink. Play with it. Until all the pink is hidden. So this one right here is a bit thin. I'm gonna keep going. Keep tucking as much as possible. This one is actually fighting me a bit. Why are you fighting me? Alright. Okay, I'm gonna go back in control. Add my final piece. Flip it where it has more brown. And this would be your two-toned middle transition ombre. there we have it. So as you can see, this one is a bit thicker. If you want your knotless to be that size, that's fine, but at the same time you always have to be careful when you're doing it. It's always have to be mindful of who your client is and their hair condition. So for example, if somebody here is extremely thin, I would stick with a smaller size. Reason being, because we're starting with their hair, the thicker the braid, the more weight it would be on their hair. So you don't want too much weight on their hair, so then I will stick with the thin section. This section, sometimes you will get a fat knotless depending on the thickness of the person's hair. So if the person's hair is extremely thick, it would automatically be thick like this. This size is perfect for persons who has enough hair density to hold the weight, and you could be sure with that. Knotless braids is very good for persons who want lightweight styles, who wants flexibility. You can put it up, you can put it down, you could play skip rope with it. Is less tension on the scalp itself compared to the box braids or the box braids. As you can see, this is tension. Box braids I would recommend for persons who have very short hair and needs a grip. Knotless braids for persons whose hair at least 3 inches or longer. Yes, you can do it with hair that is a bit shorter, but I don't think it would be healthy again for the person's hair strand, because it would be adding weight to their hair and it would actually be pulling on their hair, and when their hair grows out, it's gonna add weight to their natural hair, to their hair follicles. And guys, that's it for our session on knotless and box braids. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to ask me your questions. You know, if you guys have any problem with the recording, let me know as well so I can see how I can fix that. And I'll see you guys in my next live session.